All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining our live this afternoon. We would like to know if you can hear us before we start. Is anyone watching that can tell us if they can hear us? I guess we can. So yes, good afternoon. Thank you for joining our monthly live. My name is Aurora and I'll be joining you to share some updates about what we do here at the clinic. And we're gonna have Dr. Isabelle and Max who will be joining us as well later on. So before we start, we want to have you stand and remove your hats while we honor our national anthem. And we would like for you to please let us respect our song.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our monthly live event for updates on the Wildlife Ambassador Program, happenings at the clinic here from day to day, and many more topics. So now we would like to play once more our One Health song from Bay C, just because One Health is such an integral part of the Wildlife Ambassador Program. So let's get that going.
See, icon. Yeah. Listen me, listen me, listen me. Listen me, listen me, feature. Spread that one that with the paper across the region. Listen me, listen me, feature. Listen me. Listen me News would like to introduce you to this brand new concept. One Health. one Caribbean, one love. One health, one Caribbean, one love. Together we're strong, one health, one Caribbean, one love, love. Together we're strong. One health are the brand new concept to fight virus and diseases. Calling all of the various doctors, let's work together to achieve this. Human doctor, animal doctor, the environmental doctor. Each one an important factor. The public health have a brand new chapter. A good example of chickpea. Even if it don't hurt you, then it still hurt me. If you check the process, you will see it move from the environment to animals, then to we. First from the egg in the water, then from the water to the mosquito, then from the mosquito it goes straight to the people. But if we work together, then it leads to one health, one Caribbean, one love. Together we're strong, one health, one Caribbean, one love, love. Together we're strong. One health is not just for people with medical occupation, it is for the entire population. So we need everyone cooperation across the region. Improve food security, better solid waste management and water purity. Protect the habitat for you and me, for the animals on the land and the fish in the sea. One Caribbean, one love. Together we're strong, one health, one Caribbean, one love, love. Together we're strong. Listen me. Enough respect to one health leaders, 12 countries across the region. To a help the Caribbean, them a leaders. Let me list out the island: Jamaica, Grenada, Guyana, Belize, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Suriname, Barbados, Dominica, Trinidad, Tobago, Haiti, Antigua. One health, one Caribbean, one love. Together we're strong, one health, one Caribbean, one love, love. Together we're strong, one health, one Caribbean, one love. Together we're strong, one health, one Caribbean, one love, love. Together we're strong.
All right, thanks for viewing. Thanks for listening to our One Health song, well, BAC's One Health song. And once again, thank you to BAC for making this available to us and spreading such a good message about One Health that does really affect each and every one of us. So now Aurora will be reading out a couple of trivia questions, and then we'll be revealing the answers to these at the end of the live. Some of these questions do have to do with topics we'll be covering during this live, so stay tuned, listen up, and you can win yourself some prizes, guys. And we even have some new merchandise if anybody's looking for a BWRC coffee cup. So here are our quiz questions.
All right. So we want to, before we continue, we want to share some quiz questions with you. And we would like for you to answer them during our lives. You can place them on the comments. And we are going to be watching the answers. In order to win, you need to answer the 3 questions correctly. And you have to have them in one comment, all 3 answers. So here are the questions. So question number 1 is, what is our wildlife emergency hotline number? Number 2 is, what is the scientific name for sarcoptic mange? And we're going to be talking about that during our live. We also have the 3rd question, which is, what has been our most common seen species here at the clinic? If you have been following us on our Facebook, you are going to be aware of the animals that have been coming into our clinic. And so you can answer those 3 questions in 1 comment. Remember, guys, 3 questions in 1 comment. So we don't want you to be answering 1 question first and then the other question first, because it's harder to know which questions you did correctly. So yeah.
Alright, and momentarily we will be posting the questions as a comment on the live as well. So if you guys didn't catch them just now, you can look into our comment section and they'll be right there for you as well.
So I'll be placing the questions once more for those that have missed it. You can see the questions there on the screen. So it's 3 questions. All right, so we're gonna move on.
All right, now I know last time we did mention, for those of you who tuned into our last live or who follow our Facebook posts, we had a poster contest for our One Health poster showing how human, environmental, and animal health are all connected and how stuff that affects one definitely affects the others. So we had 3 winners for our poster contest. We're going to be sharing their artwork as well as some photos with them. And we again are very thankful to these 3 young ladies for participating in our contest. Alright, so here we have our first poster, which gives a breakdown of, it says slow down and remember the animals were here first. Talking about road safety as it pertains to One Health, and this is a big issue. I mean, the more roads are cleared, it damages the environment, the more animals have to cross these roads, and the more we're likely to run into issues, run into collisions with these animals. And this can be incredibly dangerous, not only for the animals, which is obvious, but also to ourselves. So remember, guys, slow down, take your time, keep high beams down if you do see eye shine, and just practice caution. Next, we have another one of our posters that was submitted. This one is giving a more general outlook at One Health and the environment. And we thought that this was a very cute poster coming from the youngest of our 3 participants. So we really enjoyed seeing this one as well. And then from Miss Canton up in Corozal, we got this poster which shows some nice details. Well, we do also have this on our Facebook feed if you guys want to go and check it out. And if you'll notice, the Wildlife Referral Clinic is even in this photo. We have that little blue roof building to the back. Well, that's us, guys. So thank you to Miss Canton for including us in her artwork as well. And we do see some endangered species that we have here in Belize as well, such as the yellow-headed parrot there and several other cool species that we have around. So thanks, Miss Canton. This is her with her poster. This is Miss Amara Lish with hers. And then we have Miss Noelle Canton, Miss Noelle from St. Edmund Campion High School in Tikal Village. So thanks to the 3 of you for participating in our One Health poster competition. Alright guys, so we actually have to switch up our schedule a bit today. We were going to talk about a screwworm training that Dr. Isabelle did lately, very recently, but unfortunately she is busy with an animal emergency at the moment. We did just get a new patient in, so stabilization is taking place. If it's possible, we'll have her come in and give a brief word on the screwworm training at the end of our live, but we'll just see how this treatment goes. So we'll actually be moving on into another talk from her, which we have recorded, which is going on the topics of skin fungus and scabies, or as we know them in Belize here, the different types of mange that we see around. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into that video.
Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us today in another zoonosis talk, explaining once again why protecting animals and the environment ultimately protects yourself. Today we're going to try to get under your skin a little bit, and by popular demand, today's topic is mange and dermatophytes, or commonly called also ringworm. My name's Dr. Isabelle. So yeah, common zoonotic skin diseases. We are talking about two conditions today with mange and ringworm, and we're lumping them together because they both affect the skin, but they are indeed quite different. So as in all of our zoonosis talks, we're going to first present what are the causing agents of these diseases. Then we will talk about prevalence and how common these diseases are. We will briefly introduce what these diseases look like in animals, as well as what does it look like in humans. Then we will present how do we get it, how can we diagnose it and know that we have it, and of course, last but not least, and most importantly, how do we avoid getting this disease, talking about prevention, a little bit about treatment, and then in the very end, I have some resources for you for further information and guidance as well. So let's jump into it and reintroduce the One Health concept, which connects the health of humans to the health of our animals, both domestic as well as wild, and the shared environment between us all. And we do so because we realize that when we protect one, we actually protect them all. We wanted to remind you once again that zoonotic diseases are diseases that are shared between animals and people, and they can be transferred in both directions. And if you have seen some of our previous talks, then you may remember that more than half of the infections that humans get are actually spread between animals and people, aka zoonotic diseases. This is what makes these diseases so important, as well as animal health important to human health. So some general remarks first on these skin diseases and their connection to One Health. It is, first of all, very, very common to see signs of skin infections and lesions in our domestic animals as well as wildlife on intake. Skin infections are the most common infections in both animal as well as human medicine. The effects of these infections are very variable. So it can be just a simple irritation, and it can lead all the way to life-threatening conditions in some cases. Something that is important about both of these conditions is that both humans and animals can be infectious, meaning they can infect others without they themselves showing signs. And then, especially for the ringworm, the fungal stages, they can survive a long time in the environment. So some of those fungal and parasitic diseases can infect you and your children and cause severe zoonotic rashes. It is important to realize that these diseases can only be identified with the help of a complete examination, and in most cases microscopy. So we cannot identify them just from the looks, even though there may be some more typical looks for one or the other. It always requires further diagnostic and a complete examination. So let's talk about causing agents. First of all, we have two diseases here. As mentioned, we have sarcoptic mange, also called scabies or sarna in Spanish, and there are other common names. This is caused by an acarid, which is a mite, and the family is Sarcoptes. The species is Sarcoptes scabiei. This is one species, but there is further research going on into potential genetic differences between them in different host species. Our second disease today, the so-called ringworm, is also in humans, sometimes called tinea, or the causing agents in general are classified as dermatophytes, which translates into skin fungi. It's in the class of fungi, and there are around 40 different species of dermatophytes. And common names involved here are Trichophyton, Microsporum, and Epidermophyton, for example. And here we have two images. Now here, this is the mite that causes sarcoptic mange. And then here we actually do not have images of the fungi, but we have images of the typical lesions here. Now, to how common is this? The prevalence for both of these diseases is very high. So it is very common. If we're talking about sarcoptic mange, it is very common in animals. It is actually described as one of the most commonly diagnosed skin diseases in dogs, that is, and it can infect a huge range of other species. So over 100 different species can become infected. Other species, aside dogs that are very important to us as pets that infect humans frequently, can be pocket pets as well. But of course, also wildlife species. In wildlife species, sarcoptic mange is causing more and more concerns, and it is often spread from domestic animals to wildlife. In humans, according to the World Health Organization website, there are an estimated 200 million people infected at one time with sarcoptic mange. And in certain poor areas, it's up to 10% of children that are suffering from scabies. However, in the environment, the prevalence is not as high for sarcoptic mites. That is because they are deep burrowing mites and they do not survive very long in the environment, thankfully. If we talk about ringworm, which is a fungus, this is worldwide very common, not just in animals, but also in humans. Extremely common, with estimates of up to 25% of the global population infected with skin fungi. It is also extremely common in domestic and wild animals. For both of these diseases, many species can be infected asymptomatically. What that means is they don't show any signs, yet they carry these disease agents. So we have here as examples for very common sources for us, dogs, cats, cows, sheep, but many wildlife species as well. And as opposed to sarcoptic mites, fungal stages are very resistant in the environment and can remain infectious for a next host for, here it was stated, between 12 and 20 months. So what does it look like in animals? Here is an example of one of our patients that was diagnosed with sarcoptic mange. This is a baby coati already a few weeks into the disease, after treatment with no more open sores, but a lot of hair loss, obvious. So in this case, this was not asymptomatic, but it had a lot of crusts, very hardened skin, scabs, and erosions that with treatment eventually resolved. And then another 4 to 6 weeks later, the little animal started regrowing hair with the elimination of these mites. So sarcoptic mange affects young animals as well as adult animals. It will affect immunocompromised animals or chronically ill wildlife more so than healthy animals. And very often sarcoptic mange is further complicated by secondary bacterial or fungal infections. It is very itchy in general, both in animals as well as humans. Sarcoptic mange can cause very, very severe itch. So ringworm in animals can again be without symptoms. Similar to mange, it will lead to hair loss, which in the case of ringworm can be circular, so the name of ringworm, these round lesions, but that is not always so. In most cases of fungal skin infections, these develop very slowly, so over the course of weeks, and they tend to cause a little less itch than our mite infestations. We can see a single lesion. We can also see multiple lesions, and this can also be generalized and be very, very serious at that point. So this affects, again, young animals more, but it can also affect adults, and similar to mange, or even more so, fungal infections affect immunocompromised animals much more so than healthy individuals. And again, similar to mange, fungal infections are often also complicated by bacterial and or parasitic infections. So how do we get it? 3 main ways, and this applies to both. So in both scabies or ringworm, we can acquire this through direct contact with an infected human. So we do not just get this disease from animals, but we can also spread it from human to human. We can get it from an infected animal, like this little kitty here that has a little lesion on the face. And last but not least, especially so for fungal infections, we can acquire them from the environment. Because, as mentioned before, these fungal stages can remain infectious in the environment for up to 2 years. The mange mites, however, will only survive a short period of time in the environment, but they can also be spread, for example, with clippers that have contaminated skin from an infected animal on them. And then here we have this image of the foot. For example, athlete's foot is a skin fungus as well at cause for this condition. So how does this look in humans? There are very few images that I found on the World Health Organization and CDC websites. And this is where I got this description. What is typical, the first infection with scabies will generally take several weeks, 2 to actually 8 weeks, until the symptoms appear. Yet during this period, the person can already be infectious to other humans as well. So this is very contagious. When the second infection is acquired, this is usually symptomatic really quick. This is linked to the fact that the reaction and the symptoms that humans experience are actually linked to an allergic reaction, which takes some time to develop the first time around, but for a second infection, our immune system reacts much quicker. Scabies causes very severe itch. This is often even more so at night, and then we see these whelps and then pustules, as you can see in these pictures here. Similar to animals, because of the severe itch, the scratching will often cause secondary bacterial infections and fungal infections as well. Here's some images of ringworm in humans. It's described as a common fungal infection causing a circular rash shaped like a ring that is usually red and itchy. So ringworm too can be itchy, but it tends to be much less itchy than burrowing mites are. As mentioned before, it develops slowly. It can be a single lesion, but it can also develop into something like this. There are different locations depending on what parts are exposed. And again, similar to animals, immunocompromised humans are what's called predisposed. So if you develop a ringworm infection, it is also recommended to check with your doctor to ensure your immune system's health. So how do we know that we have it? We are not diagnosing any diseases through a presentation here, but this needs to be confirmed by a licensed veterinarian in animals and a medical doctor in humans. But in general, in animals, we use the clinical signs, the somewhat typical lesions, and then skin scrapings to identify either fungal stages or mites. We have to know that these tests can often be false negative, and one negative test result does not mean that the animal does not have these parasites. It is generally required to do these skin scrapings up to 3 to 5 times. And when it comes to skin fungi, we have an additional method here with the so-called wood slam that you see in this image here. About 50% of skin fungi may fluoresce in the woods lamp, and that's what you can see here. This is actually a tamandua mouth, the same one from the picture before, with this woods lamp showing very strong fluorescence, all where we could before see the lesions on the mouth. In humans, it is similar that the clinical symptoms help to suspect this diagnosis. And then I have actually not heard of skin scrapings in humans. I assume they potentially should be done as well. And I just noted here, if you have itchy rashes on you and you're working with animals, remember to tell your physician that you've had contact with animals to include this as a differential. There is a fungal culture to confirm fungal infections, but this is usually a slow-growing culture. So many times treatment will be instated before the fungal culture confirms the diagnosis. So most importantly, how do we prevent these diseases? Number one, keeping your pets healthy protects you, and keeping them on regular preventatives for mites so that they do not acquire these mites or maintain these mites and do not infect you. If you do see any lesions on your pets, we recommend cleaning them with a antiseptic and keeping them under close observation and having them checked by a veterinarian to make sure that your pets who may share close quarters with you do not carry these infectious diseases that you could get from them. We recommend using proper protective equipment, so wearing gloves when working with infected animals. And of course, we have to remember that they could be infected without showing signs. In humans, we just want to ensure that you are aware of these diseases, and especially for immune-compromised humans, the recommendation is actually to avoid contact if possible. There are some special recommendations and guidelines by the CDC as well for immunocompromised humans who may have a pet with either of these diseases that are linked down here. So it is recommended, as always, to wash your hands after touching animals. Another recommendation on the CDC website was to, for example, vacuum to remove skin flakes and other potentially infectious agents from your immediate environment, and or wearing shoes in contaminated environment. And there is a whole long list in these references. So a couple more CDC images here to remind you, always wash your hands after touching, feeding, or playing with your pets. Take your pet to the vet. That will help keep them healthy and happy, and it will keep you healthy as well. A little bit on treatments. So we cannot, again, prescribe treatments in a presentation like this, but it requires a veterinary or physician's examination to differentiate what is it that you are dealing with, because fungal, parasitic, and bacterial infections may have some semi-characteristic looks to them, but very often overlap, and they cannot be differentiated without these diagnostics mentioned before, aka microscopy or culture. And then there are different antifungal as well as antiparasitic treatments that will be prescribed, starting oftentimes with ointments and localized treatments. But when we have very severe progressed infections, then it may come to generalized infections and also systemic treatments. One last point here for fungal infections. In general, there are very long treatments because fungi develop slowly and the treatment also takes a long time. And it is often not completed, which then leads to reoccurrence. So here are some resources that were used and that we recommend for you to check into to find a little more information on keeping pets and people healthy, as well as CDC references on scabies and ringworm, as well as prevention and what to do if you have an infected pet. And then for veterinarians and other health professionals, we also very highly recommend the Companion Animal Parasite Council, which has guidelines on many parasitic diseases, including all of these zoonotic diseases, including these here. So please do not hesitate to send us any questions right now via chat, via email, and we look forward to hear from you and hope this helps you to stay safe. Thank you very much.
All right, I hope you guys learned a bit about sarcoptic mange, scabies, different skin funguses that we see here in Belize and what you can do to treat them. Our next topic will be a brief recap on our Ultra for Conservation, our marathon through the Pine Ridge. It was a great event, a bit rainy, but everyone had a wonderful time. We really want to thank our two full-time participants, Mr. Juan and Steven, as well as the other teams who joined in for the day, or other participants that joined in for this day or the other. A great time was had by all, and in total it raised the clinic $4,230 for conservation. So kudos to all involved. We'd also really like to thank our sponsors of this tournament for including some great prizes and helping us to pull it all together, as well as helping us to coordinate on the ground. as well as all of our volunteers, sorry. It took a whole team to make this work through the mud and the muck, but we got it done, and it was a really good time after all. And the good news here, we already have our ultra scheduled for next year, and it's going to be in a slightly drier time of year as well. So if anyone is interested in running some serious distances, that'll be taking place from February 27th to March 1st, 2026. We'll be opening up registration before too long, and more details will be coming, but yeah, we're figuring out the way to make this happen and make the most money for conservation, and any support is really welcome, guys. Yeah, the weather was the main challenge for that. There were some parts of the road that were impassable for vehicles, but the guys still made it work out. So again, thanks to Juan and Stefan for sticking through it. So then next, we will have another brief video from Dr. Isabelle talking about trash in our environment and how this poses some One Health risks. What are some better alternatives to dispose of your trash? And yeah, just the negative impacts that can have both on us, on our surroundings, and on wildlife. So here we go.
Good afternoon and welcome to today's rather sobering talk on trash and the impact on wildlife. I am to give you a few examples of why our trash is so problematic. So have any of you heard of Midway Atoll? Or do you know what is the Great Pacific Garbage Patch? And why would we care here? So this picture shown here is a Laysan albatross pictured on Midway Atoll, which is a small atoll in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. It is not inhabited, and humans are at least 1,000 and more miles away from this island. Yet on this island are found dozens and dozens or hundreds of bird skeletons. And what you can see inside this bird is its cause of death. It is literally full of trash because these birds mix up fish with the floating trash debris in the ocean and they feed on it. And ultimately, they die of it. So why do we care here? Because this impacts us as well. The global trash, unfortunately, does not go away, but it ends up in places like Belize as well. So what is trash? It's improperly disposed waste products. And there is a lot of different waste products that we produce. And it impacts, first of all, of course, the environment in which it accumulates, as well as animals in many which ways, plants, and last but not least, us, humans. And plastic indeed is a major problem. The beauty of plastic is it's long-lasting and cheap, but the problem is it doesn't degrade, and therefore it accumulates. And in addition to that, in the ocean on plastic, pollutants will actually concentrate. So a sobering number, since 1950, about 8.3 million tons of plastic were produced. And of those, less than 10% were recycled. The rest of that is in our environment. So what happens is that animals like these albatross and others may eat it and suffer the consequences, including very slow and painful death. And eventually, these larger plastic pieces that you saw in those pictures will be ground down to microplastics, which will then lead to them being consumed by plankton and accumulating through the food chain until it ultimately lands on our plate as contaminated seafood. So here, another image from the Wildlife Federation here, talking about the plague of plastics. This is another one of these birds, and you can see where its stomach is just an overwhelming amount of plastic, which led to them not getting any proper nutrition. So another sobering comparison here. At this time, the ratio of plastic to fish in our oceans is about 1 to 5. So we still have 5 fish to 1 piece of plastic. Yet for 2050, which is not that far away, it is estimated that the ratio of plastics to fish in the ocean could be 1 to 1, and that is by weight. So as much trash in the ocean as fish. Can you imagine that? Unfortunately, it's happening. So now to some examples of patients that we have seen at the wildlife clinic. One of the early ones was an opossum that was just trapped in an open trash can. That was a simple solution with rescue and release. And there is a simple prevention for this by keeping lids on trash cans. This doesn't just help opossums, but it also prevents a lot of wildlife conflict. Next, we had a songbird which accidentally dropped into an open tray of motor oil. Unfortunately, this bird succumbed really quickly because burnt motor oil is very highly toxic. So the solution to this is to not leave motor oil containers open and to always ensure proper disposal of those. And please note that this is also very important to human health, to be disposed of to where it does not lead to contamination of groundwater. So a few more examples here with a picture from San Pedro Sun. This is on ambergris or in the lagoon. There is many images of crocodiles eating garbage, and we have seen multiple crocodiles with garbage in them, with hooks in them, as well as turtles with hooks in them. We also had a peacock who ate a needle which punctured its stomach, and a cormorant who had a hook in his neck, or a croc that was wrapped in fishing line. And the outcome, unfortunately, in many of these cases was fatal for the animal. And the solution can be somewhat simple: properly disposing of garbage to where wildlife doesn't have access to it. Fishing line and nets causing entanglement is a huge issue. And you may have heard of this impacting marine life, much more so even than terrestrial. So all animals are affected, but our oceans are very much at threat, because even if our garbage starts terrestrially, ultimately it goes with our waterways into the ocean. So there are more problems than animals being killed by eating garbage or being obstructed by large pieces of garbage or punctured by garbage, but the mere fact that trash will attract wildlife and therefore lead the all too common human-wildlife conflict. This brings us about 20% of our intakes at the wildlife clinic, human-wildlife conflict. And this is many, many times caused by garbage, causing an attraction. So if garbage is properly managed, this will reduce the rat populations, which will in turn also decrease the amount of conflict with barn owls or snakes in your backyard, because these guys are attracted because there are rodents which are attracted by garbage. So sometimes it's a 2 to 3 step process going back to the problem of garbage. So disposing, and furthermore, disposing food items accessible to crocs or jaguars can lead to them losing their fear of humans, which can cause a deadly threat for humans by these predators. The image here is one of our first hooked crocodiles, named Captain Hook. Unfortunately, he had a hook in his chest around the base of his heart, and he ultimately succumbed due to it as well. And are you familiar with this link? Garbage along the highways leads to animals getting into the highways and roads, and this leads to them getting hit by cars. So 30% of our clinic intakes are found on the roadside. Very often they're attracted to the road by the amounts of trash and garbage alongside. And most times these animals will die due to the severity of their injuries. Sometimes this also causes serious injury to or damage to vehicles. And in the worst case, this will cause a car accident. So the solution is don't throw garbage onto the roads, slow down when you see animals or eye shine. And of course, assist with cleanup campaigns and educate others about this issue because this is not very commonly known. So here is a poster by the Wildlife Center of Virginia from the US, one of our partners and mentors, that emphasizes just this. I was raised with being told that we could throw out compost and organic debris along the roadside, but that was wrong because that is what attracts a lot of animals onto the road, and they may not know how to respond to cars and get killed and cause accidents. And ultimately, in the end, why we really want to address this as humans is because it comes back to us. Yes, that trash kills lots of animals due to malnutrition, toxicity, obstruction, entanglement, and more. And it attracts the animals, which gives us human-wildlife conflict, which of course causes problems for our safety. And last but not least, these microplastics that I mentioned early on, which will accumulate through the food chain, being ingested first by plankton, then by the next fish, all the way up to the top predator, which is us, and land on our plate as polluted seafood. There are high levels of mercury, for example, found in some of these seabirds due to this plastic. And we can assume that the same will happen to our seafood as well. So another very sobering image here and statement, if we don't change by 2050, there will be more plastic than fish in the world's oceans. But good news, Belize is a trendsetter. Belize is literally one of the first countries to ban single-use plastics. This is definitely a big part of the solution. But there's much else that we as individuals can do to make a difference in this issue. So this is just a very short list, of course. Number one is to reduce the use of plastics. So using cloth bags, reusable bottles, not using straws, for example. Disposing of trash properly, closing trash cans, not leaving trash in the environment or your backyard, but following this leave only footsteps and take only pictures motto. Recycling, taking the trash to the distribution center, choosing products that reduce trash, and participating or organizing in cleanup campaigns, as well as learning more about these risks of inappropriate garbage management and educating others are just a few things that you can do. And we're curious to know what you can think of, because there is so much more that we can do to minimize this garbage problem. Please send us an email and let us know what suggestions you may have to add to this. And then we have a bit of further recommended viewing. There is a documentary by the title of A Plastic Ocean. We'll share the link in the comments. And then there is the Plastic Pollution Coalition that you could also check out. And as always, contact us with questions. And last but not least, if you see any wildlife in trouble, be it entangled in your garbage or in any other trouble, call our hotline at 615-5159. You can also use WhatsApp, and we stand by to assist you with advice and, if necessary, with rescue. Thank you so much for your attention.
All right. Hope that was some good information for everyone viewing. Again, the garbage in our environment is not there naturally. It really sets stuff out of their usual day-to-day activities. Garbage along our roadways attracts animals to the roadways. Don't even get me started on what it does to our marine environments. And yeah, it just really doesn't belong there. We have these proper transfer stations in place, guys, so let's put them to use. And even burning it in your backyard is really terrible for your health. So we really advocate for proper garbage disposal, just to avoid a whole heap of problems. So now onto a slightly happier topic. We'll be going over some of our monthly highlights here at BWRC. It's been a good month. We've had some great patient recoveries. We have some highlights, a bunch of animals actually getting released very soon. We had some great work from people in the communities as well to both bring us animals, assist with releases, or just kind of advocate the message of One Health and coexistence. We've had a number of howler monkeys come in, for example, from different areas, and we have one that was really badly beaten up from Santa Elena, which is recovering pretty well at this point. And yeah, that was one of the highlights. We also release as well. So, like I said, a lot of really great updates. Dr. Isabelle and our CFO, Miss Melissa Gutierrez, have both participated in a screwworm training for treatment for dogs, but it was also full of some great information. We have some photos of the flyers here that were distributed by ICA, Baja, our Ministry of Agriculture, and several other groups, the USDA as well, and OIRSA. So we thank them for that training, and we really do urge people to stay on top of their animals, keep a good eye, monitor your livestock, monitor your pets, and watch out for this screwworm. It's a big zoonotic threat, but it is something that we can manage if we do monitor correctly. We would also like to extend our gratitudes. So again, a big thanks to all of our sponsors and volunteers and our participants for the Ultra Marathon. A big thanks to people helping out in our transport network to get animals from where they're injured into our care. So this is people like the Forest Department, several tour guides we've had the pleasure of working with, Mr. PC Wade, Officer Wade, who was able to bring that crocodile into us. And lastly, but not leastly, all of our volunteers and interns here at the BWRC. So we have some common interns that you guys might know of by now, such as Mr. Craig Gare, Mr. Simon Lotif, Miss Jen McKnight. We really thank them for coming in and being a part of the team here at BWRC as well. And for all of the interns coming to visit, such as, and our visiting vets in addition to interns. So a big thank you goes out to Dr. Jade, Dr. Ruth, Miss Emma Rosen, Johara Habet, and Isabelle Aldape for all of your tireless work here at BWRC to make sure that all the animals are doing okay and all the assistance that you give to our staff here. Alright guys, and on that note, I think we're going to be moving on into our trivia answers. So again, those trivia questions were, what is our wildlife emergency hotline number? What is the scientific name for sarcoptic mange? And what is the most common patient here at the Belize Wildlife and Referral Clinic? And here's Aurora with our answers.
So once again, those are the questions. And I'm going to read out the answers. I don't see anyone who had comment the right answers, so we leave our little goodies for our future live next month. So our answers for the questions are: 1, our hotline number is 615-5159, and you can reach out to us with any wildlife questions, wildlife emergency, or if you're not sure, you can reach out to that number and we will be assisting you. The scientific name for sarcoptic mange is Sarcoptes scabies. The other answer to our question is, we have seen Hecate monkeys being attacked by dogs. We have had coatis, and lastly, we have been having opossum.
That was a bit of a trick question, guys. Like I mentioned, Hecates, or Central American river turtle, are a critically endangered species. I know a lot of us here in Belize do enjoy a little bit of Hecate from time to time, but it's really important that we let these guys' numbers bounce back, guys. They are critically endangered, and while they are a cultural meal here in Belize, there are rules in place from the Fisheries Department to protect them. So remember, there are size limitations. You can have no more than 3 Hecate per vehicle, and they do have a close time in the month of May. And the reason that we have seen so many Hecate as our patients here at BWRC is thanks to our amazing partners down at BFRE, or the Belize Foundation for Environmental Education. They have a Hecate breeding program, which really helps to bolster these animals' numbers out in the wild. And again, kudos to BFRE for keeping that happening and having us here at the BWRC be a part of it as well. Alright, and on that note, guys, again, thank you to all of our volunteers, our sponsors, everybody involved with the clinic that keeps it all rolling. And we'll see you guys next time. Same place, same time next month. All right.